The flight from Zurich to New York City landed 30 minutes ahead of schedule. I smiled, offering a silent thanks to the tailwind for giving me a little extra time. The birthday gift for my husband, Ethan, was safely tucked away in my purse, a limited edition timepiece that I'd only been able to get using my personal connections. We had been married for 3 years, and our love felt as strong as it did on day one. Or at least that's what I believed at the time. I imagined his face lighting up with surprise and joy when he saw me, and a warm, sweet feeling washed over me. Our usual family car was waiting for me at the airport. James, our chauffeur, was happy to see me. "Mrs. Johnson, it's so good to have you back," he said. "The boss told me to come at the usual time. He didn't expect you so early." I nodded and told him there was no rush. I wanted to keep the surprise going until the very last moment. The closer we got to our mansion in the Hamptons, the faster my heart beat. This house, every brick, every corner of the yard, we had chosen and built it together. It was a symbol of our love and our future, a future I had painted with the brightest colors. The car pulled up to the front gate, and I signaled for James not to honk. I wanted to slip inside quietly, like a breeze, and then wrap my arms around Ethan from behind. The front door wasn't locked. It was slightly ajar. A strange feeling washed over me. My mother-in-law, Margaret, was the most meticulous person I knew. She would never forget to lock the door. I gently pushed it open and stepped inside. The voices of Ethan's family were clearly audible from the living room. I heard Ethan, his father, William, and his mother. They were probably finalizing the plans for tonight's party. I was about to say hello when a single sentence from Ethan froze me in place. "Don't worry, Mom. My wife's an idiot. She'll believe anything I tell her. Once she's back from this business trip, a few sweet words and she'll fall in line just like always. The $40 million from her mother's company will be in our hands soon enough." His voice was filled with absolute arrogance and contempt. The same voice that for 3 years had whispered words of love to me was now as sharp as a knife, plunging directly into my heart. I stood frozen against the wall, my body rigid. The watch box in my hand suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Margaret continued, her tone barely concealing her greed. "Thank goodness she's an idiot, really, because if she were any smarter, our family would have been ruined ages ago, you and your father. Just finish the job already. Once that money's in the Ashford Holdings account, that girl won't have any use. If you want to get a divorce and marry that girl Sophia, I won't object." Sophia? The name was another hammer blow to my head. Sophia was the new intern at Ethan's company, a young and pretty girl whom I myself had praised to him, saying she seemed bright and sharp. I never imagined William, the father-in-law I had always respected for his serious and calm demeanor, would speak with such a grave and calculating voice. "Let's take the divorce slowly," he said. "We have to make sure everything is tied up and the investment contract can't be undone. Jessica is the head of Apex Industries, and her mother, Patricia, is no simple woman. We have to be careful. Go step by step. Ethan, you just keep playing the perfect husband. Don't let her suspect a thing." Every word was like a poisoned needle pricking my skin. My 3-year marriage, it turned out to be nothing more than a stage play. I was the naive leading lady, and they were masterful actors. They performed so perfectly that I never suspected a thing. The love, the affection, the promises of a future together, all of it was a lie. Their only goal was the $40 million from my mother's company, Apex Industries, to save their own company, Ashford Holdings, which was on the verge of bankruptcy. A sharp pain seized my chest, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling, but I didn't cry. Perhaps when the truth is too cruel, you can't. Instead, a terrifying cold spread through my entire body. The love inside me died, and from its ashes, hatred was reborn. I backed away in silence, carefully closing the door just as I had found it. I couldn't let them discover their charade had been exposed. If they wanted to perform, I would be the one to rewrite the script for the final act. I turned around and quickly walked out the door that had once been my paradise. My heart was bleeding, but my mind was strangely lucid. The plan for revenge began to form in that very instant. I hailed a cab and asked the driver to take me directly to a hotel in downtown NYC. I needed a quiet place, a space just for me to organize my thoughts. Sitting in the car, I watched New York City pass by the window. The same familiar streets, the same trees I passed every day, but why did everything feel so alien today? My world had collapsed in a matter of minutes. The man I loved, the family I respected with all my heart, they were all con artists. Arriving at the hotel room, I locked the door and collapsed onto a chair. Silence enveloped me. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just sat there staring into the void. Memories of the past 3 years came flooding back, sharp as a slow-motion film. The day Ethan proposed to me at a lookout point overlooking the Hudson River. His gaze seemed so sincere. The wedding day, promising before both our families to love and care for me for a lifetime. The trips, the romantic dinners, the sweet words, everything, absolutely everything was a farce. They saw me as a fat sheep patiently fattening me up for the day of the slaughter. The more I thought about it, the more the pain transformed into a burning fire of hatred. They had trampled on my love. They had made me an idiot. They wanted $40 million? Well, I would show them the price you pay for underestimating this Jessica. I wasn't some weak girl who crumbles easily. I am the daughter of Patricia Johnson, the CEO of Apex Industries, a woman who built an empire from nothing. My mother's strong blood runs through my veins. I picked up the phone and dialed my mother's number. It rang once, and her voice, always gentle but full of authority, answered, "Jessica, honey, are you back yet?" Her voice made a knot form in my throat, but I quickly composed myself. This was no time for weakness. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice as calm as possible. "Mom, I'm here. I'm tied up with something outside. Listen to me. I need you to order the immediate withdrawal of the entire $40 million investment in Ashford Holdings, Williams Company, right now, without losing a second." There was a silence of a few seconds on the other end. My mother is an intelligent and perceptive woman. She knew something terrible must have happened for me to be so firm. She didn't ask why, she didn't question me. She just said one firm sentence. "Okay, I'll take care of it right now." Her words lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. I knew my mother wouldn't disappoint me. Patricia had been in the business world for decades. Dealing with people like Ethan's family was child's play for her. "And one more thing, Mom," I continued, my voice a couple of tones colder. "From now on, any matter related to me and that family, let me handle it. I'll need your help, but I'll make the decisions. I want to make them pay for what they've done with my own 2 hands." This time, my mother was silent for a longer moment. I could imagine her frowning, worried about me, but in the end, she respected her daughter's decision. "Understood. Do what you think is right. I'll always be here to support you." Hanging up, I felt a new strength surge within me. The pain was still there, but it no longer paralyzed me. It had become my fuel. I opened my contacts and looked for a familiar name, Benjamin, attorney at law. Benjamin was not only my personal lawyer, but also my best friend from college. He was the only person I could fully trust right now. I dialed his number. Benjamin's voice on the other end sounded as cheerful as ever. "Well, the big boss is back. Did you bring anything for your humble subjects?" "Benjamin, I need your help," I said seriously, without a hint of joke. Benjamin instantly sensed something was wrong. "Where are you? What happened? Send me the address." "Can you come right now? It's very urgent." "Sure, 10 minutes," he replied. After hanging up, I went to the bathroom and filled the tub with cold water. I needed to wash away all the filth Ethan's family had thrown on me. I looked at myself in the mirror, reddened eyes but no tears, a pale face but with a sharp gaze. The weak woman, submerged in a fake love, had died. The person in front of the mirror was completely different, ready for a war without quarter. 15 minutes later, Benjamin arrived. Seeing my state, he couldn't hide his concern. He sat in front of me and asked anxiously, "Jessica, what the hell happened? You look terrible." Without mincing words, I told him the whole story, from my excited return home to the cruel conversation I overheard in the living room. I told him everything calmly, clearly, without omitting a single detail, in a monotone and emotionless voice, as if I were narrating someone else's story. Only my tightly clenched hands betrayed the chaos inside me. When I finished, Benjamin was silent for a long time. His normally jovial face hardened, and his eyes flashed with rage. He softly hit the table, a restrained gesture. Damn them! Those people have no soul. How dare they deceive you like that? Benjamin's anger was a balm to me. At least I had a sincere friend by my side. Now is not the time to be angry, Benjamin. I need you to help me. Ask for anything, he replied, without hesitation. Investigate that intern, Sophia. I want to know everything about her, her family, her past, when her relationship with Ethan began, everything in as much detail as possible, I said in an icy voice. And also the financial situation of Ashford Holdings. I want a complete report on their debts and failed projects. Benjamin nodded. That's easy. I'll have my people work on it immediately. But what do you plan to do? Divorce him and throw them all out on the street? I shook my head, a bitter and cold smile appearing on my lips. If it were that simple, it would be too easy for them. They've treated me like an idiot for 3 years. They need to get a taste of their own medicine. I'll continue to play my part as the sweet, devoted wife. I'll perform this play with them until the very end. Benjamin looked at me with some worry in his eyes. Jessica, won't it be too much for you, having to see the man who betrayed you every day, to pretend to love him? I'm afraid you won't be able to handle it. Don't worry, I said with determination. When love dies, only reason remains. You do your job well. I'll take care of the rest. After Benjamin left, I took another hour to calm down. I called the house and told the housekeeper I had an unexpected meeting with an important partner who had just flown in from Zurich, so I would be home late. I asked her to prepare Ethan's birthday party as if nothing were wrong. Then I went to a mall, bought a new dress, and carefully reapplied my makeup. I had to make sure that when I returned, no one would see the slightest hint of a breakdown in me. At 8 o'clock that night, I drove back to the house. The mansion was brightly lit and soft music played from inside. I took a deep breath, put on the perfect mask of a happy wife, and went in. Ethan ran to greet me with a fake expression of concern. Honey, you're back. I've been calling you nonstop. I was so worried. Where were you? I smiled sweetly and wrapped my arms around his neck, a gesture that now made me feel sick. I'm sorry, my love. An important partner. I couldn't leave earlier. Happy birthday, my husband. I gave him a light kiss on the cheek. Ethan hugged me tightly and whispered in my ear, Thank you, my life. Just having you here makes me the happiest man in the world. I closed my eyes, trying to hold back the urge to vomit. That hug, which had once been my warmest sanctuary, now felt cold and dirty. My in-laws also came up to me with smiling, kind faces. Jessica, you're here. Have you eaten anything? Come eat with us, Margaret said with an affectionate voice. Thanks, Mom. I was so busy with work I didn't even have time to eat, I replied with a mix of tiredness and happiness. You've prepared everything so wonderfully. The birthday dinner passed in a warm atmosphere. They played their parts perfectly. So did I. I served Ethan food, filled my father-in-law's wine glass, and chatted happily with my mother-in-law. Every now and then I caught the knowing glances they exchanged when they thought I wasn't looking. They were celebrating that their prey was already in the trap, unaware that they were the ones about to fall into the net. That night, lying next to Ethan, listening to the traitor's even breathing, my plan for revenge became clearer and clearer in my mind. A few days after that fake birthday party, I started to act. I needed a reasonable excuse to show up at Ashford Holdings to see the situation with my own eyes, and also to intimidate certain people. After receiving Benjamin's preliminary report on the disastrous financial situation of the company, I had an idea. That morning at breakfast, I turned to Ethan with a tone of great concern. Honey, I've noticed you've been leaving very early and coming home very late lately. You look exhausted. Do you have a very important project at the company? Ethan's eyes lit up, although he tried to look modest. Well, a project like any other, but being in the initial phase, there's a lot of work, and I have to oversee everything. I want to share that burden with you, I said, looking him directly in the eye. What do you think if I go to the company today to take a look? I also studied business administration. Maybe I can offer some ideas for you and Dad. Besides, my mom often asks me about the investment, and I should drop by so I can inform her. I deliberately emphasized the words, my mother. As expected, Ethan and William, who was reading the newspaper nearby, changed their expression slightly. My offer was a double-edged sword. On one hand, they were happy, thinking I was genuinely concerned about the investment, but on the other, they were afraid I would discover something abnormal in their empty company. After a moment of hesitation, Ethan smiled and accepted. What a great idea, my love. With your help, everything will be much better. I'll tell Dad to get everything ready, and then I'll come pick you up. No need, honey, I replied. I can go by myself in my car. I want to give everyone a surprise. I didn't want to go with him. I needed the freedom to observe. Around 10 in the morning, I arrived at the Overheard Holdings headquarters. It was a rather old building in a secondary district that didn't at all match the image of a multi-million-dollar project they were touting. As I entered, my presence immediately drew the attention of the employees. Surely everyone knew I was the vice president's wife, the golden goose about to lay an egg for their company. Ethan and William ran down to greet me. Both had a tense and forced expression. Honey, why didn't you let me know? Ethan said. I told you I wanted to give you a surprise. I smiled radiantly, taking his arm. Good morning, Dad. This is my first time here. Excuse me if I'm intruding. William laughed falsely. What are you saying, daughter? We're family. Your visit is an honor. Let Ethan and I show you the company. They guided me through the different offices. At first glance, everything seemed to be functioning normally, but with my management experience, I could easily notice the disorganization and lack of professionalism in the staff's work. The atmosphere was heavy, somber, without the vitality of a growing company. Passing by the administration department, I happened to see Sophia. She was sitting at her desk, and when she saw me with Ethan, her face paled and she quickly looked down, pretending to be busy. I stopped and, smiling, turned to Ethan. Honey, this intern looks so familiar. I think I've seen her somewhere. Ethan flinched, visibly nervous. Oh no, you must be mistaken. She's just a new employee. I ignored his expression and walked directly to Sophia's desk. I leaned in to read her nameplate. Sophia. Oh, yes, now I remember. The other day you said this girl was very efficient and pretty, right, husband? I said, addressing Ethan, but keeping my eyes fixed on Sophia. She was trembling, her face ashen, not daring to look up. She knew my presence there, as Ethan's wife, was a strong enough warning for her. I wanted to sow fear in her heart, for her to know her place. Then we went to the conference room to listen to William and Ethan present their new project. They showed a series of inflated figures on paper, grand but unrealistic plans. I sat in silence, listening, nodding occasionally, and asking seemingly innocent questions that, however, hit the weak spots of their plan, making father and son sweat to find an explanation. This visit had accomplished my goal. I had shown them I wasn't easy to fool, and at the same time I had sown doubt and fear between them. The game had just begun. My revenge required time and meticulous preparation. I couldn't just withdraw the investment and expose them. That would be too soft. I wanted them to destroy everything themselves, to experience the feeling of reaching the peak of hope and then falling into the abyss of despair. And for that, I needed them to sink even further into the financial trap they had set for themselves. A week after my visit to Overheard Holdings, I read in the news about a charity auction organized by a prestigious foundation in the city. It was a major event that would bring together many business owners and influential people. I knew Ethan's family wouldn't pass up this opportunity to polish their image and make contacts, and that was also my opportunity. During dinner, I mentioned the auction casually. My mom called to remind me that this weekend is the Heart of Gold Foundation's charity auction. She says it's a very important event, and many of Apex Industries' big partners will be attending. Hearing this, Margaret's eyes lit up. Oh, really, daughter? Your mother certainly has vision. You have to go to those events to expand your contacts. Of course we'll go. I smiled innocently. Yes, but going empty-handed looks a bit bad. Everyone who goes bids on something to support the foundation. I don't know what item to choose. Saying this, I casually opened my tablet and started looking at the list of auction items. I paused at the image of an antique ceramic vase with an exquisite design. Oh, this vase is so beautiful. It looks a lot like one my mother once told me about. She said my grandfather had an identical one, but had to sell it during difficult times and always regretted it. I said it as if it were nothing, with a tone of nostalgia, but kept watching their reactions of Ethan and his parents. Sure enough, they looked at each other, exchanging a look full of meaning. I knew the fish had taken the bait. Gaining the favor of my mother, the CEO of the group who held their destiny in her hands, was what they craved most at that moment. In the following days, I didn't mention the vase again, but I knew Ethan had already had people investigating. One day, he came home with a triumphant expression. "My love, I've already asked. That vase is a very valuable antique with a clear provenance. I think we should buy it to give to your mother. I'm sure she'll love it." I feigned concern. "But the starting price is already $50,000. I'm afraid it will go up a lot at the auction. Is it really worth it, honey?" Ethan took my hand with a decisive voice. "To make your mother happy, any amount of money is worth it. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Consider it a small gesture of appreciation from my parents and me to her." I knew perfectly well that this small gesture was actually an investment. They were willing to spend a large sum to win my mother's trust and ensure the $40 million were not in danger. But what they didn't know was that the vase was a fake. I had asked a friend who was an antiques expert to evaluate it through photos, dressed with elegance and sophistication. Ethan acted as the most gallant and attentive husband. When the antique vase came up, he didn't hesitate to start bidding. The bidding became fierce as other competitors, my people of course, became determined to get it. The price of the vase rose quickly. Finally, Ethan won the bid for $250,000, a figure that caused a murmur throughout the room. When Ethan went on stage to pick up the item, he looked at me with pride and triumph. He thought he had just scored a huge point with his wife's family. William and Margaret couldn't hide their joy either. They didn't know that those $250,000 came from Ethan's personal pocket, money he had been secretly saving, which had now become a worthless piece of porcelain. Seeing his smile, I only felt pity. The price of a lie sometimes begins with the brightest of tinsel. After the auction for the vase, Ethan's family was even more convinced that they had completely won my trust and my mother's. Their treatment of me became even sweeter and more solicitous. Ethan even tried to show more remorse for his affair, which he believed I was completely unaware of. But a fox cannot hide its tail. A few days later, Benjamin gave me an important piece of news. This Saturday night, Ethan has a date with Sophia at Liel, a luxurious French restaurant in the Upper East Side. He's reserved a private corner. I smiled disdainfully. An old dog can't be taught new tricks. He had just spent $250,000 to win over his mother-in-law, and he was already going on a date with his mistress. Maybe he thought I would never go to a place like that alone, or maybe his blind confidence had clouded his judgment. "Perfect," I told Benjamin on the phone. "Thanks." I immediately called my mother. "Mom, are you free this Saturday night? I'd like to take you to dinner at Liel." My mother was surprised. "Is something special happening, honey?" "Nothing special, Mom. I just want us to spend some time together. It's been a long time since we went out to dinner alone. Will you come with me?" I said in a coy voice. My mother, who always indulged me, accepted right away. "Of course, my dear. If you ask me, how can I say no? What time?" 7:30, Mom, and dress up." On Saturday night, my mother and I arrived at the restaurant. I had reserved a table from which we could observe Ethan's private corner without being too obvious. We sat down, ordered, and chatted lively as usual. My mother didn't ask anything about my plan. She was simply by my side, giving me unconditional support. Around 8, Ethan and Sophia walked in. He was wearing an elegant suit, and she a low-cut dress and heavy makeup that made her look older than she was. They headed to their reserved corner without noticing our presence. My mother and I continued with our dinner. Half an hour later, when their food had already been served, I signaled to my mother. I got up, a glass of wine in hand, and said, "Mom, I'm going to the restroom for a moment." I deliberately took a path that passed by Ethan and Sophia's table. As I got closer, I accidentally tripped on a chair leg and fell towards their table. The wine glass I was holding spilled all over Ethan, leaving a large stain on his white shirt. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I said clumsily. Then I looked up, feigning major surprise. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Ethan and Sophia were stunned. He paled, stammered, unable to form a word. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" Sophia's silverware clattered onto her plate, panicked. At that moment, my mother approached, feigning concern. She looked at Ethan, then at Sophia, and on her beautiful face a brief expression of surprise, which quickly transformed into an indulgent and understanding smile, that of a woman of the world. "Well, Ethan, what a coincidence. My daughter and I are also having dinner here," she said in a soft voice, as if nothing was wrong. Then she turned to Sophia, looking her up and down with the gaze only an experienced woman can have. "Hello, you're a coworker of Ethan's. You're very pretty." Sophia lowered her head, not daring to answer. Ethan was so nervous he didn't know what to say. Yes, Mom. She's a partner from the company. We were discussing some work matters." My mother smiled to herself, but on the outside she pretended to believe him. She patted Ethan on the shoulder with a voice full of irony. "Ah, yes, discussing work in such a romantic place must be very productive, right? Well, we won't bother you anymore. Jessica, come with me. Let's let these young people have their space to work." She took my arm and led me back to our table, leaving Ethan and Sophia sitting in the middle of confusion and panic. This encounter was a perfect psychological blow. It wasn't a scandalous scene of jealousy, but a subtle warning that left Ethan terrified of being discovered, yet unable to explain my mother's and my strange generosity. His confusion and fear would only increase, and that was exactly what I wanted. The play was still long, and the surprises waiting for him had only just begun. After that fateful night at the restaurant, the atmosphere at home became incredibly strange. Ethan spent several days not daring to look me in the eye, always looking for excuses to avoid me. He tried to act more attentive and loving, but the clumsiness and fear in every gesture couldn't fool me. He was waiting for an outburst of anger, an interrogation from me. But I didn't give him what he expected. I remained calm, sweet, as if nothing had happened. My silence was the most terrifying punishment. Finally, after almost a week of living in anguish, Ethan couldn't take it anymore. That night, while I was reading in the bedroom, he came in and knelt at my feet. "Jessica, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Please forgive me, just this once." He was like a drowning man clutching at the edge of my dress. I put down the book and looked coldly at the man kneeling before me. What a great actor. His tears seemed so real that if I had been the Jessica from a month ago, I probably would have softened. "What did you make a mistake with?" I asked, without a shred of emotion. I shouldn't have gone out with her, but it was just work. Really, there's nothing between us. Just business social protocol. You have to believe me." He kept trying to deny everything. I smiled bitterly, a smile full of sarcasm. "Social protocol? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old who will believe those lies?" It was then that I took out the photos Benjamin had obtained, images of Ethan and Sophia embracing in the car, entering a hotel hand in hand, clear, unequivocal. I threw them in his face. "Is this also work protocol?" Ethan looked at the photos. All the color drained from his face. He knew he couldn't deny it anymore. He hid his head against the floor, pleading desperately. "I'm sorry, I know. I lost my mind. It was a stupid mistake. She was the one who seduced me. I only love you, Jessica. Don't leave me, please. I couldn't live without you." I sat, listening to his excuses, and please, how ridiculous. Even at this point, he was still blaming others. But I didn't expose him. I needed him. I needed his cooperation for my plan. I faked a sigh, acting exhausted and hurt. "Get up. Since we've come to this, I left the sentence hanging in the air on purpose. Ethan, hearing me, became even more frightened, thinking I was going to ask for a divorce. He rushed to swear and promise 1,000 things. I swear it won't happen again. I'll cut all contact with her. Please give me one last chance, Jessica. I sat in silence for a long time, letting his fear grow to the limit. Then I slowly said, "All right, I can give you a chance." Ethan's head shot up with the joy of a shipwreck survivor finding a life raft. "But on a condition," I continued in a firm voice. "My mother is very disappointed in you. She's reconsidering the $40 million investment. The only way to regain her trust is for you to prove your worth. I want to personally participate in the supervision of Ashford Holdings' new project." Ethan froze. This condition was outside his calculations. I continued without giving him time to think. "I will act as a representative of Apex Industries, directly supervising the progress and cash flow of the project. Every expense must go through my approval. Only then will my mother be calm enough to release the funds. What do you think?" This was a pact with the devil. Apparently, it was an opportunity for Ethan to redeem himself, save his marriage and the investment. But in reality, it was a way for me to have complete control of Ashford Holdings. Once I controlled the money, I could suffocate them whenever I wanted. Ethan, in his panic of losing everything, no longer had the clarity to weigh the consequences. He only saw it as his only salvation. He nodded frantically. Okay, I accept everything you say, just as long as you don't leave me." "Good." I got up and walked past him. "I'll go to the company tomorrow. Prepare an office for me." The door closed, leaving Ethan on the floor with a newly lit spark of hope. He didn't know he had just signed his own death warrant and that of his family. The cat and mouse game was now entering its most exciting phase. With control of the project in my hands, my next step was to remove the thorn in my side, the mistress, Sophia. I couldn't allow her to keep hanging around Ethan and causing unnecessary problems. Besides, she was also an important piece in my plan. I asked Benjamin to arrange a meeting with Sophia at a discreet coffee shop. I didn't want to see her at the company or anywhere that could draw attention. When Sophia arrived, she looked quite haggard. The restaurant incident and probably Ethan's subsequent threats had left her sleepless. Seeing me waiting for her, she flinched with an expression of fear and suspicion. "Ma'am, why did you want to see me?" she stammered. I smiled, a polite smile, but cold enough to freeze blood. I slid a bulky envelope across the table. "Inside here is $100,000. Take it. Consider it a small gift from me." Sophia looked at the envelope, stunned, and then at me, not understanding anything. What does this mean?" I took a sip of my tea and said slowly, "I want you to take this money and leave New York. Get away from Ethan. Go to another city and start a new life. With this money, you can live comfortably, open a small store, or do whatever you want." Sophia lowered her gaze in silence. I knew she was hesitating. $100,000 was a huge sum for a young girl from a humble background like her. I continued in a soft voice, but with words that hurt her pride. "You're young and pretty. Why waste your youth on a married man? Do you really think Ethan loves you? Don't be naive. All he wants from you is novelty and your body. When he gets tired, you'll have nothing left. You'll have lost your youth and earned the reputation of being the other woman, the family wrecker. Do you think it's worth it?" My words hit the bullseye of her deepest fears. She started to tremble. But Ethan said he would get a divorce to marry me," she said in a weak voice, more like an attempt to convince herself than an assertion. I laughed, a laugh full of sarcasm. "Divorce to marry you? Do you know his family is drowning in debt and depends on mine to survive? Do you think he would dare to leave me, the wife who can get him $40 million, to marry an intern with nothing like you? Wake up, girl." I stood up and put my purse on my shoulder. "I'll give you 3 days to think about it. If you accept, come to this address and you'll also receive a job contract. I'll get you a good position in Atlanta with a high salary. If you refuse, then don't blame me for being cruel." I left the last sentence hanging in the air on purpose, so she herself would imagine the consequences. I knew that for someone as greedy and cowardly as Sophia, the choice was clear. As I expected, 2 days later, Sophia contacted me. She accepted the money and left. The transaction was quick and quiet. Seeing the money go to her and her disappear from my life, I didn't feel joy or victory, only pity for those foolish women who turned themselves into commodities. But she was the one who chose her path. I just made her an offer she couldn't refuse. With that obstacle removed, I could focus entirely on my main objective, Ethan's family. After resolving the Sophia matter, I started my supervision work at Ashford Holdings. They assigned me an office next to Ethan's. Every day, I arrived at the office on time and demanded all the documents, contracts, and financial reports. My presence was like a shadow looming over the entire company. Father and son, although they smiled and cooperated in appearance, were clearly nervous. They had to hide the deficits and failed projects while dealing with my strict supervision. During this process, I discovered numerous practices of tax fraud and creative accounting. I secretly copied all the evidence and sent it to Benjamin to keep. The noose was tightening, but I needed one last push, a knockout blow that would prevent them from getting back up. And then something unexpected happened that gave me a devilish idea. Benjamin called me with bombshell news. "Jessica, I have something urgent to tell you. That girl, Sophia, is pregnant." I was stunned. "What are you saying? Are you sure?" "Absolutely. My people saw her go to a private gynecological clinic several times. I've confirmed it. She's about 8 weeks along." 8 weeks. I did a mental calculation. That was just before my business trip to Zurich. I hung up. My mind was spinning. A crazy but perfect plan began to form. If Sophia could be pregnant, why couldn't I? I acted immediately. I had a close friend who was a gynecologist at a major private hospital, someone I could trust blindly. I went to see her and laid out my plan. At first, she flatly refused, saying it was too dangerous and unethical. But after I told her the whole story, indignation replaced her professional principles. She agreed to help me on the condition that I made sure the hospital wouldn't be affected. With my friend's help, I got a fake ultrasound and pregnancy history. It clearly stated 12 weeks pregnant, normal development. 12 weeks, I had calculated the number with precision. If I was 12 weeks pregnant, the time of conception would coincide exactly with my trip to Zurich. That meant Ethan couldn't be the father. I wanted to sow doubt in his mind, absolute suspicion. I wanted him to be tormented, to struggle with his own calculations. Would he think I had been unfaithful, or would he accept raising a child that wasn't his for the sake of the $40 million investment and Sophia's baby? This act of the play promised to be very interesting. That night, I came home with an expression of tiredness but radiating happiness. During dinner, I accidentally dropped a fork. As I bent down to pick it up, I winced in pain and put my hand on my belly. Margaret, my mother-in-law, who was very observant, asked instantly, "Jessica, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" I looked up and smiled shyly. "It's nothing, Mom. I guess I've been a bit tired lately." Ethan also asked worriedly, "Does something hurt, honey? Do you want me to take you to the doctor?" I shook my head, looking at him and the rest of the family with an expression of pure happiness. I took the ultrasound from my purse and gently placed it on the table. "No need to go to the doctor, honey, because I have some good news for the whole family." Everyone's eyes were fixed on the paper. William was the first to pick it up. When he read aloud, 12 weeks pregnant, the room fell into a stunned silence. I saw Ethan's face change from surprise to bewilderment and then to a pale panic. He looked at me, then at the paper, with a look full of doubt and fear. My plan had worked. The first act of the end had begun. My good news was like a bomb in Ethan's family. William and Margaret were ecstatic. For them, this grandchild was the ultimate guarantee of the $40 million investment, the heir to the empire they dreamed of building. They didn't doubt the truth of the pregnancy for a second, or perhaps they preferred not to. But Ethan was different. In the following days, he lived in torment. I could see the confusion and internal struggle in his eyes. 12 weeks. That number obsessed him day and night. He wanted to ask me, but he didn't dare. He feared that if he did, everything would fall apart. The charade of the happy husband about to become a father would end, and his family's dream of wealth would be shattered. His greed and cowardice prevented him from facing the truth. Meanwhile, I knew the news of Sophia's pregnancy had already reached Margaret's ears. Ethan had surely told his mother, seeking her help, and a woman as practical and twisted as Margaret had her own plan. That Sunday, I told Ethan I wanted to go to his parents' house to give them the good news and have a family meal. It was a trap I had set, and I knew they would fall for it. The meal passed in an atmosphere of fake joy. Margaret kept serving me food, giving me all kinds of advice for pregnant women. She played the part of a loving mother-in-law, worried about her grandchild. After the meal, she called me to her room to talk, saying it was women's stuff. Ethan and William discreetly left. In her luxurious but cold bedroom, Margaret took my hand and said in a soft, understanding voice, "Jessica, honey, I know you've been through a lot lately. I know everything about Ethan and that girl." I feigned surprise with teary eyes. "Mom, you knew?" She sighed, stroking my hand. "He's my mother. How could I not know? Men are like that. Sometimes they have their fun outside, but the important thing is that in their heart, it's just you and your child. You see, he's recognized his mistake and come back to you. I know you're a compassionate woman. Forgive him." I lowered my head in silence, playing the part of the hurt wife, but willing to forgive. Seeing this, Margaret got straight to the point. And as for that girl, Sophia, she's actually a bit pathetic. She made a mistake, and now she's carrying this family's blood in her belly. She stopped to observe my reaction. Seeing that I said nothing, she continued with growing audacity. "I've thought about it carefully. After all, it's my grandchild, and abandoning it would be a shame. How about, well, you're also going to give birth soon, so we can kill two birds with one stone. We tell everyone you're having twins. When the other girl gives birth, we'll bring the baby home, and you'll recognize it as yours. That way, we save the family's reputation, and we don't lose a sterling heir. What do you think?" Listening to those words, I felt nauseous. How could such a shameless woman exist, calmly proposing to her daughter-in-law that she raise her husband's illegitimate child? What did she think I was? An incubator? A tool to legalize her son's misdeeds? I was prepared for the worst, but still her true face disgusted me. However, a smile formed on my lips. I had secretly activated my phone's voice recorder, which was in my purse. The entire conversation, every one of her inhumane words, was being recorded. I looked up and faced her with innocence. "Mom, so I'd have to raise both babies? Do you think I'll be able to handle everything?" Margaret, seeing that I didn't object, was overjoyed. "Don't worry, we'll hire help. You just have to be their mother for legal purposes. Ethan will be eternally grateful to you, and the whole family will be too. Think about it. It's the best solution for everyone." "Okay, Mom, I'll think about it," I replied in an obedient voice. I left my in-laws' house with the valuable recording in my possession. It would be irrefutable proof, the knockout blow that would end the honor of their entire family. Everything was ready for the final act. After the conversation with my mother-in-law, I returned home feeling a mix of disgust and satisfaction. The recording on my phone was my ace in the hole, the definitive proof of the shamelessness of their entire family. Now, everything was following the script I had written. My fake pregnancy, along with Sophia's real one, had become two powerful narcotics that had made Ethan's family completely lose their reason, leaving only a blind greed. They believed they were about to get it all, a multi-million-dollar investment to salvage their company, and not one, but two heirs. This belief made them reckless and careless. The next day, my mother, Patricia, sent the new investment contract to Ashford Holdings. It was a contract that Benjamin and I had carefully rewritten. On the outside, it looked even more generous than the previous one, with very attractive clauses about profits and technical support. but inside it hid extremely restrictive legal clauses, subtle financial traps that with the slightest carelessness could cost them everything. Normally, William, a man with some business experience, would have scrutinized it, but now his mind was clouded by the vision of a brilliant future. Plus, with me pregnant and personally supervising from the company, they were convinced it was a mere formality. William and Ethan signed the contract without hesitation. The moment William's pen touched the paper, I knew the fate of Ashford Holdings was sealed. To start the new project, according to the grandiose plans they had drawn up, they needed a considerable initial capital, but their company had been empty for a long time. The Apex Industries' $40 million investment, according to the contract, would be released in phases only after Ashford Holdings completed the corresponding stages. This forced them to get the initial funds on their own, and this is where I came into play. As a supervisor, I started making reasonable demands to accelerate the project. I asked them to hire an expensive team of foreign consultants, to import the most modern machinery, and to make large deposits for high-end materials. These were all huge expenses. Cornered, father and son had no choice but to start taking out loans. The banks had closed their doors to them long ago due to their history of defaults. Their only option was private lenders with usurious interest. They mortgaged the mansion, the cars, mobilized every possible resource, entering a spiral of debt like moths attracted to a flame. They believed they only had to hold on for a bit. As soon as Apex Industries started injecting money, all their problems would be solved. Every day at the office, I saw them desperate, looking for money, humbling themselves before menacing-looking thugs. Seeing their anguished and haggard faces, I felt no satisfaction, only a terrifying coldness inside. How stupid people can become when greed blinds them. They were digging their own graves while happily believing they were building a paradise. The noose had closed, only the final blow was missing. After almost 2 months of tormenting Ethan's family in their own financial trap, I knew the moment had come. Ashford Holdings was up to its neck in debt, depending completely on our imminent investment. It was time to lower the curtain. I told Ethan that to officially announce the collaboration and celebrate the good news of the family, I wanted to organize a big party, a party to reaffirm Ashford Holdings' position and silence the rumors about its poor financial situation. Ethan and his family went crazy with joy. It was exactly what they had been waiting for, a high-profile event to announce to the world that they were back, stronger than ever. With the backing of the powerful Apex Industries, without hesitation, they accepted and gave me free rein to organize everything. I chose the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, one of the most luxurious and expensive 5-star hotels in New York City. I sent invitations to the entire business elite, to major partners, to banks, and of course to the press. I wanted everyone to be there to witness the fall of the Sterling family. That night, Ethan's family arrived very early. They wore their finest clothes, with faces radiating arrogance and triumph. William walked around greeting important guests as the host of the party. Margaret, covered in diamonds, laughed and boasted about her brilliant daughter-in-law and future grandchild. Ethan didn't leave my side, a possessive arm around my waist, playing the part of the loving husband and successful man about to achieve glory. They didn't know that everything was a grand stage I had set. Every congratulation, every look of admiration was an invisible knife that inflated their ego so the fall would be even more painful. I was the center of attention, in a deep red evening gown, smiling and greeting everyone. The dress was designed to hide my flat stomach. I looked at my husband and his family, immersed in their fake glory, feeling nothing. This would be their last party, and I would be the one to blow out the candles on this cake of destiny. The stage was set, the actors in their places. All that was left was for the curtain to rise on the final tragedy. When the party was at its peak, the soft music suddenly stopped. All the lights in the ballroom went out except for a spotlight that illuminated me. As I walked onto the stage, all eyes were on me. The silence became absolute. Ethan's family looked at me with pride, thinking I was going to give a speech to honor them and announce the project of the century. I smiled, a radiant smile, but without warmth. I took the microphone, and my clear voice resonated in the room. Good evening, and welcome to everyone for joining us today. I am Jessica Johnson, CEO of Apex Industries, and as you know, the wife of Ethan Sterling. I paused, looking at Ethan. He smiled, encouraging me. I turned to the audience. Today is a very special day. I'm here to share a couple of stories with you, stories about the truth. With that, I signaled to the technician. On the large screen behind me, instead of a project video, a recording began to play. "Don't worry, Mom. My wife's an idiot. She'll believe anything I tell her." It was Ethan's arrogant voice, the same one I had heard from behind the door. A murmur rippled through the room. The smile froze on the faces of Ethan and his family. They were stunned, not understanding a thing. The first recording ended, and the second began. This time, it was Margaret's voice. "We tell everyone you're having twins. When the other girl gives birth, we'll bring the baby home and you'll recognize it as yours." At that moment, scandal erupted. People started whispering, and all the looks of astonishment, contempt, pity were fixed on the Sterling family, who were petrified in their seats. I let the chaos calm down a bit before continuing in a firm voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, for 3 years I lived in a perfectly orchestrated stage play. They approached me and married me with one single goal, the $40 million of Apex Industries. They treated me like an idiot, a tool for their gain." I looked directly at Ethan, who was trembling, pale as a ghost. He, the husband I loved with all my heart, was unfaithful to me and conspired with his family to deceive me. Then I turned to Margaret, and she, the mother-in-law I respected deeply, had the audacity to propose that I raise my husband's illegitimate child, an indecent proposal that no woman could accept. I put my hand on my stomach, where everyone believed a life was growing. "And this pregnancy," I said bitterly, "was also part of my revenge plan. I am not pregnant." A gasp ran through the room, but the shock wasn't over. "And as for his mistress's child," I continued with a sharp gaze, "I would also like to inform you of something, Ethan. That baby isn't yours either. Before she left, she confessed everything to me. You were just one of her many sources of income." At the same time, in another location, my mother was holding an urgent press conference. All the evidence of tax and accounting fraud from Ashford Holdings was being made public. The curtain had fallen. The truth was exposed, naked under the stage lights. My last words were like a thunderbolt, not only for Ethan's family, but for everyone present. The party turned into a chaotic scene. Camera flashes were incessant. Journalists flocked to get the best photo of the disgraced family. Margaret couldn't bear the shock and fainted right there. Ethan stood like a pillar of salt, looking at me soullessly, babbling nonsense words. But the first to fall was William. Hearing his company's dirty laundry being aired and facing public humiliation, he put his hand to his chest, turned purple, and collapsed. A heart attack. Shouts, people calling for an ambulance. The grand party ended in a tragic and chaotic scene. From the stage, I watched everything in silence. I felt no joy, only an icy emptiness. The revenge had ended, but it left a bitter taste. In a single night, the empire the Sterling family had tried to build on a lie collapsed completely. The next morning, all the newspapers opened with the Ashford Holdings scandal. The company's shares plummeted to worthlessness. In a matter of hours, banks and, above all, the private lenders came to collect their debts. The mansion, the cars, all their properties were seized. They went from living in luxury to being penniless paupers. The family disintegrated. William survived the heart attack, but was left with half his body paralyzed, bedridden. Margaret lost her mind upon waking, spending her days crying and cursing, and Ethan, from being a handsome vice president, became unemployed with a multi-million-dollar debt and a bleak future. He had to take his parents to live in a small, dirty apartment in a working-class neighborhood. The fall was quick and brutal. It was the price they paid for their greed and their lies. I had achieved justice for myself, but the scar on my heart would probably never fully heal. Days after the fateful party, when the waters had calmed, I decided to go to the hospital, not to visit William, but to complete my last act for the public. I needed to project the image of a betrayed but magnanimous woman, a noble victim. It was important for my image and that of Apex Industries. Dressed simply, with little makeup and a fruit basket, I entered the hospital, followed by some journalists who had casually been tipped off. I went to William's room. Only Ethan was inside. He was emaciated, with a multi-day beard and wrinkled clothes. He looked like a ghost. When he saw me, he flinched with a mixture of hatred and fear in his eyes. I ignored him and left the basket on the table. I looked at William motionless in the bed and then turned to Ethan. After all, he was my father-in-law. I've come to see how he is, I said calmly. Ethan didn't respond. Maybe he didn't know what to say. He wanted to hate me, but his family started it all. I stayed for about 5 minutes, long enough for the photographers to get their shots, and then I turned to leave. In the hallway, Ethan ran after me and stopped me. He suddenly knelt, crying inconsolably in the middle of the hospital hallway. "Jessica, please forgive my family. We have nothing left. My father is paralyzed. We don't have money for medicine. Could you lend us some money for the love we once had? I beg you." I looked at him coldly, kneeling at my feet. The love we once had? He still dared to mention it. Even in this situation, he only thought about money. I brushed his hand away from my leg and took a step back. I took a few coins from my wallet, the ones I used for the parking meter, and threw them on the ground. "You want money? There you go. It's all you deserve from me," I said with contempt. "And don't ever appear in my life again, or next time we'll meet at the police station." With that, I turned and left without looking back. Behind me, I heard his sobs of rage and despair. The play had truly ended. After the divorce and resolving all matters, my life slowly returned to normal. I threw myself into work to forget the bad memories. Under my and my mother's direction, Apex Industries grew and expanded. The professional achievements partly soothed the pain of the betrayal. But Ethan wouldn't leave me alone. Having lost everything, he seemed to have lost his mind as well. He started following me. Sometimes I would see his familiar figure loitering near the office or my front door. He didn't approach, he just watched me from a distance with a complex expression. At first, I ignored him, thinking he would get tired. It was during that time that I reconnected with Christopher at an economics conference. Christopher was the founder of a promising tech startup, a brilliant, honest, and passionate young entrepreneur. We had been classmates in college, but lost touch. When we saw each other again, we connected right away. He was smart, funny, and most importantly, sincere. With him, I felt at peace. I felt like I could be myself again, a feeling I had forgotten for a long time. We started dating. Christopher knew my story from the news, but he never asked. He simply stayed by my side, taking care of me and showing his affection with actions. Little by little, my icy heart began to melt. Christopher's presence in my life drove Ethan crazy. He was no longer content with just watching from a distance. He started sending me threatening messages filled with sick jealousy. One night, while Christopher and I were having dinner at a restaurant, he burst in to confront Christopher. Security had to intervene to remove him. His harassment became intolerable, and I knew I couldn't keep ignoring him. I needed to have one last conversation with him, one to settle the matter for all time. I decided to meet him, not in a public place, but in our old mansion, which was now my property after the divorce. I wanted him to face everything he had lost. Ethan arrived at the meeting looking even more pathetic than he had at the hospital. He was skeletal, with tired, sunken eyes and clothes that were old and worn. He looked like a ghost. When he saw me, he lunged to grab my hand. "Jessica, you finally wanted to see me. I knew it. I knew deep down you still loved me." I stepped back, keeping my distance. "Don't get your hopes up. I called you to clear things up once and for all. Clear what up, Jessica? We can start over, he pleaded. I know I made a mistake. I'll fix it. I'll do anything to make it up to you. We were happy. Have you forgotten? I laughed, a cold laugh. Happy? The kind that's built on lies and deception? Ethan, do you know why you failed so miserably? He looked at me, confused. I said in a sharp voice, because you're stupid and arrogant. You thought I didn't know anything, that I was easy to fool. But you were wrong. Everything from the moment I came back from Zurich was part of my plan. The fake vase, the encounter at the restaurant, the investment contract, the fake pregnancy. I orchestrated it all. I've been 2 steps ahead of you this whole time. I told him my plan in detail, without omitting anything. I wanted him to know that he was never the winner, just a puppet in the play that I myself had directed. As I spoke, Ethan's face changed from hope to astonishment, then to horror, and finally to despair. He backed away, looking at me as if I were a monster. No, it can't be. You, you deceived me. Exactly, I affirmed. I just treated you the way you treated me. You taught me a lesson that in this life you can't trust anyone. Now it's over. Get out of my life. If you keep following or harassing me, this recording is going straight to the police. I held up my phone, showing him the audio file with his threats. It was enough evidence to send him to jail for a few years. Ethan looked at the phone and then at me. His will and the little pride he had left shattered. He collapsed to the ground, crying silently. A man who had lost everything: family, career, love, and even his dignity. The play had truly ended. After that last encounter, Ethan disappeared completely from my life. He no longer followed me, no more messages. The harsh truth I revealed to him had destroyed him. Sometime later, I read a small note in the newspaper. William, after a long treatment, had regained some mobility and speech. The first thing he did was to send a public apology letter to my mother and me through his lawyer. In it, he admitted all of his family's mistakes, the greed that had blinded them, and asked society for forgiveness. It was an intelligent gesture, though belated. It wouldn't save their company or restore what they had lost, but at least it allowed them to retain a last shred of honor. The curtain on the sterling charade fell definitively amid ruin and regret. As for Sophia, as I had foreseen, after receiving a large sum of money and learning the truth about the pregnancy, she also disappeared silently. She was smart enough to understand that staying in New York would bring her nothing good. A very expensive lesson for a young woman who had taken a wrong turn. My life from then on became peaceful. The ghosts of the past stopped haunting me. I was able to dedicate myself completely to building my future. The relationship between Christopher and I progressed naturally and solidly. He was not a substitute for Ethan. He was a completely new chapter in my life. He brought me trust, respect, and a sincere love without calculations. We decided to get married after a year of dating. Our wedding wasn't ostentatious, only family and close friends attended, but it was full of happiness and warmth. My mother looked at me in my wedding dress with teary eyes, took Christopher's hand, and asked him to take good care of her only daughter. Shortly after the wedding, I discovered I was truly pregnant. This feeling was completely different from the fake pregnancy. It was a sacred joy, a sweet anticipation. Christopher cried with happiness. He took care of me with infinite care, not letting me do the slightest thing. Apex Industries, under my leadership and with my mother's support, became stronger and stronger, expanding throughout the region. I had proven my worth, not as the CEO's daughter, but as a true businesswoman. I had a new life, a new family, a full and serene happiness.